The views and opinions expressed on the Craig L. Hayes Show are not necessarily those of Westgate Resorts ownership or management. And now, on with the show.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
All right, we're back for episode 3 with Shawn Wayne. We're going to do a little bit more about the work that goes into putting on a major production. He did 26 years at Jubilee, and I'd like him to just tell us a little bit, for a little bit here, how much work every day had to go in. You did your hour and a half show, sometimes twice a night you would do, so you had 3 hours right there. But the hours before and after to get that show ready to go for the next day, or repairs, or, go ahead and tell us a little bit about
and
that.
that was the preliminary. That was our bread and butter because you made, the hourly wage of, you'd come in sometimes 4, 5, 6 hours before the show, and everything had to be, sent out to the the costume shop. If there were any repairs that needed to be made that were extensive, we would have to turn those in, write up slips. We would have to go through every piece in the dressing room. Each dresser would be assigned to X amount of performers, and you would just go through their whole rack, stem to stern. Are their shoes good? Does anything need to go to the shoe cobbler? Does anything need dry cleaning? Is the button flying off? Is the zipper coming loose? It was preventative, because once that curtain went up, you didn't want any customer to ever see, oh, the girl's bra came apart, or oh, her strap broke on her shoe and she twisted her ankle and almost killed her. No, it was like a movie in progress, and everything had to look pristine for the customers.
Exactly.
And it was hours and hours of toiling and running your fingers over the costume to make sure that the prongs on the rhinestones weren't going to poke the performer when they got it on, and the constant walking up and down the stairs is the girls posed through the show. It would shake the rhinestone chain, and it would rattle the findings, and you had to make sure that those, if there was a loose stone, that you tightened the prongs or added a little bit of glue to it, or whatever it took, you moved heaven and earth to make damn sure that nothing went wrong when that curtain went up. And it was amazing to sit and watch the show from the front and think, oh my God, this thing is it's impeccable. It's perfect. They would send us out, to watch the show and try and, look for flaws and see things that we could improve. And boy, let me tell you, you'd have a rough time finding some kind of a critique unless you had a really scrutinous eye, because with that much going on, you actually could have hid mistakes because there was so much happening. But that's the one thing Don Arden never wanted a customer to look up and see something flailing or falling apart, or God forbid looking cheap, because everything was extremely expensive. The show, when it was mounted, there was an actual worldwide rhinestone shortage because they bought up every crystal rhinestone, and now it's to the point that it's funny because now they're not even making the stones. They discontinued most of the stones that we used in the show, the shapes and the colors, and now everything is plastic. And there are some real rhinestones and stuff still left in the marketplace, but it's nothing like the good old days when it was, the stagehands built all of that. They built the bracelets and the headdresses from scratch. They sat and welded the prongs. I mean, when you see how many prongs are on one little small tiny costume piece, and they sat there and welded every prong, and then it went to the costume department. They put glue in there, put the stone in, closed up the findings. The work that went into it was just immense.
And nonstop.
Nonstop. As long as the show's running, you're constantly. That's why, it's funny. I was in wardrobe for 26 years, and I didn't know how to sew. I did hand sewing. I would sew buttons on. I could, hem things and stuff. But as far as, you never sat down and made a costume from scratch, or we weren't even allowed to do like big repairs on the costumes. That went to the costume shop because quality control, they wanted everything to look exactly the same. When 26 girls come down that ramp in the same outfit, they don't want any variation. Everything had to look pristine and perfect, and that was one of the ways that we accomplished that was, you know, we did the light repairs of the show that, as things would, run in the show and, oh, the zipper broke, oh, I can fix the zipper, no problem. But anything extensive in construction wise was always tediously put together by the costume shop, which was the women were experts at tailoring and just amazing seamstresses.
Where was the costume shop for Jubilee?
Well, it used to be the actual, the room was underneath the stage.
Okay, so it was on property.
Yeah,
so-
it was. It
okay.
was next to the main elevator, and that's where the band, the live band and orchestra actually played, and then they piped the music up into the room.
Yeah.
But after the musicians struck, and then they just got rid of them, and they canned the music. The wardrobe department took over that whole room. It was just a couple of small little areas where the wardrobe was done, but at that point they got one whole huge giant room, and the show had ran so long by then that they were constantly rebuilding the Bob Mackie finale pieces, the headdresses, all the feathers had to be replaced periodically, and then it just got to a point that we couldn't get the rhinestones. They were discontinued, the certain shapes and colors. A lot of the feathers that were on the headdresses were off of extinct birds, so you had to substitute with different feathers. And some of those costumes back in 1980 were anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000 for one costume.
Yeah.
A skirt, a bra, a headdress, and the jewelry. Ka-ching, ka-ching.
Adds up quick, especially when you got a cast of 85. I'll tell you.
The corporate pencil pushers would have had a heart attack if they got to look at the bill for the original show.
Yeah.
I think they did it for $10 million back in 1980, and you couldn't do it today for $100 million.
No.
There's no way.
Absolutely no way. Yeah, that I think it was 10 million on all the set, and then the wardrobe was another budgeted thing. But it was Kirk Kerkorian, man. I tell you, he didn't care about things like that. He just wanted the most amazing shows that made people go, "Wow, we got to go see that again." He was an old school like mob guy that understood it. Not saying he was mob, but it was one of those. He understood the mentality. Make something so amazing that they all have to come to our place and they want to come spend their money here.
And keep coming back
Keep
over
coming
and
back
over
over, yeah.
because you can't gobble it all up in one show. It just people would constantly say, "Oh, I just saw 10 more things I never saw the first time I saw this show."
Exactly. And then on top of that, he always had two rooms. He had a production room and he has a celebrity room. He always did that. He did that here. When this place opened, it had two rooms. It had this room, which is the celebrity, that was Elvis Presley's room. And just as a reminder, we're in Elvis Presley's dressing room doing this show. I like plugging that. But in Benihana, what Benihana is now, that used to be the legit production room.
Okay.
If you ever walk around up above and stuff like that, you see all the lighting systems, everything from way back when, and then in 72, 3, 4, somewhere in there, they got rid of that and they put in Benihana Village. But yeah, when it opened, that was the legit theater, and this was a celebrity room. Then they moved down to MGM, became Bally's, now Horseshoe. Same things, two rooms. And then the same thing down at the big MGM down in, Tropicana.
Yeah, I was shocked when they took out the celebrity room to build the ramp to get into the Paris hotel, because that was their next big project after the Aladdin was blown up, and they bought that property and built the Paris, and they had to have a way to get between the two hotels. But it just seemed like the perfect showroom for headliners, and it was, because You could do a cocktail show with 1,500 people
Yep.
twice a night. This winds up being almost the same amount of people that you would get over at the 5,000 seat Forum when they built the new room at Caesars,
Yeah.
and it just seemed like it was unnecessary because they never really particularly filled that 5,000 seat room. It was like it's like a big barn, and the showroom, the circus, or was it Circus Maximus? Was that
Circus Max's was the original Caesar's Palace. Right?
Yes, that was an amazing showroom. I think it held 2,200, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. It actually held about 1,200.
Did it?
Yeah, it was small.
Oh, it
See,
seemed
the originals in these places, like this was like the biggest one that they had ever built when this opened up in '69. Desert Inn, Flamingo, all those places, 800 to 1,100 was their common
Yeah.
common numbers. It was, because they had booths, they had all that stuff. When they opened this place up and they could pack 2,000 people in there, that was unheard of.
Yeah, that was well, and Elvis was luring in an international audience from all over the world. People were getting off the plane. It really put this town on the map. People have no idea that Elvis really put this place on the map. I mean, granted, there were other big celebrity acts that came here back in the 50s and all of that, but nothing brought in an international crowd like the King.
Yeah, and in this place, they were at the time back in the mid '70s. They were laying out the phase was going to be another showroom.
Mm.
It's out there where the Paradise Event Center is, the convention area is now, is what it became. But they were going to put in a 5,000 seat room because of Elvis,
Mm.
because he could fill it
Oh, yeah.
without even blinking twice. He could have done, back then. I mean, now they're building them and saying, "Oh, see, we're building a big one." Well, this place knew that Elvis could do it back in the 1970s, and then he wouldn't have to do as many shows because but they'd probably still had him do 2 shows a night with 5,000 because, he could draw the people, not a problem.
Yeah, it's funny. That Caesar's room, the layout, it had so many booths and so many different tiers. It seemed like
It seemed huge.
thousands of seats.
Yeah, but you ask them, they could probably put in 1,500 or something like that.
Right.
But I think it was right around 1,200 because I did a lot of shows over there too, and Flamingo was like 900 or something like that. It was a small. These were all small rooms, until they built this place, and then they started getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and
Yeah, that was the place, the Caesars. I saw Diana Ross. I saw Joan Rivers, Jim Stafford, Pia Zadora. It was just the headliners back then were just amazing. You'd come here for the headliner, and then gambling was just a perk, and staying up all night and partying and going into the lounges, and
that's the crowd they love.
it was never a dull moment, and that's what the town thrived on is the up all night. Now a lot of people are in bed by midnight when they come here for a trip. It baffles me.
Yeah, it was like how people would sit there and, like you said, stay up all night, all weekend. Basically, they'd stay up for get here Friday night and start partying and having fun, seeing shows and gambling and doing all this stuff, and then they'd go back Sunday night, just beat to death, and then think, when can I go back and do that again?
Well, and of course everyone does the same thing. Before I would come to Vegas, I would think, oh God, how much money am I going to bring to gamble? I would bring, like $200, $300, $400, whatever the amount was. And you would always tell yourself, oh, now when this is gone, I'm going to stop.
Mhm.
So I guess if you don't have any more, this is before it was ready cash was available where you could run to cash machines all over the place. And, the whole town just turned on a screw. It was.
Yep. And then, if you had this much money budgeted for food, this much, you go, well, I can go without a couple meals if I can go play this game. Go chase my my losings a little bit, see if I can get some of it back.
Well, and at the end of the big production show craze, everything, the town got so popular as a tourist destination. All of the TV shows started coming down here and filming. You had Barbara Walters and The View every year. You had Kelly and Regis. You had game shows. Everyone wanted to film a game show down here because they thought, oh, it's exciting. Everyone's in a good mood. It's a party atmosphere. This would be great. And when the show closed, I continued on, and I did do several shows. I did Who Wants to Be a Millionaire. I did Card Sharks. Um, but of course, the pandemic came along, and all that fizzled out.
Fizzled out. That was a horrible time. Shame on Steve Sisolak for shutting this town down.
Yeah,
There was no reason to do anything he did, you know.
It was so shocking to see the strip absolutely vacant. It was the most macabre thing I've ever seen in my life
was
after
horrible.
living here. Terrible scene that was. But boy, did we snap back in record time.
Yeah,
God.
it's come back, you know. It's thank heavens it came back and people are doing it. But yeah, so Bally's, MGM Bally's, now the Horseshoe. It's so weird calling that place Horseshoe.
I know. I would have never guessed that they would buy Binion's Horseshoe and dissect the name.
Yeah, and then just go, okay, we're taking Horseshoe with us, and you guys can just call yourself Binions. Weird, huh? That to me was, it's always Binion's Horseshoe, but whatever,
Yeah.
you know. But you know, Bally's had to get out of it because they had to get their name off the side of the building, so we get that part of it.
How are we doing on time?
I think we're doing pretty good. We've still got about 10 more minutes on this episode. So is there anything else that you can think about, you know, what you've done from
Well, like I said, we started doing a lot of television down here, and now, of course, there's all kinds of buzz that they're going to be building a couple of movie studios down here, and you know, they had talked about this before, but this actually is a very good place for that because with all of the IATSE people that are in this town, you know, that's the basis of all movies, television, live entertainment. If all falls on, you know, that's all of our different crafts, the audio, the video, the set building, everything falls under that umbrella of our union is perfect for all of those different venues that tie in with the movie business and industry. So
yeah.
I think it would be a great thing if they could get it going.
And California has become so expensive
It's
to do films, and supposedly in this next legislative session, they're going to make it so worthwhile to these movies to come into town and do it, you know, tax breaks and just permit processes it and streamline it to make it simple to do. I mean, supposedly that's what they're supposed to be doing to bring that. I mean, it's like, why wouldn't you? That's billions of dollars coming into this town on movies. It's like, come on, guys, get with it.
And
you know?
we have the perfect location for it because, you know, LA is so bogged down with the background of the buildings and the terrain and everything. It's really kind of hard to shoot someone without erasing things with AI.
Yeah.
To really, for some specific plots of movies and television series. Here, it's such a wide open space. You know, you can doctor a location to look like you're almost anywhere in the world. You know, they always said that they think that the landing on the moon was faked out at Area 51. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, you could fake just about anything here in Nevada because there's such wide open spaces, and
Yeah.
it's I think it's the perfect spot for movies and television.
I do too. And I hope they jump on it and they actually make this happen in this next session and just make it so it's cheap. You know, not Florida, Georgia really jumped on it and made it really good to go do movies and stuff in Georgia.
Tyler Perry built that amazing studio in Georgia,
And the Georgia state government just jumped in with him and was like, yeah, you can build films. We're going to make it simple to do, cheap to make your stuff here, easy permits, low taxes, tax incentives, blah, blah, blah. And this place is supposed to be doing even better than Georgia did. So, dudes, do it. Let's get some films being made here, you know?
Well, that's it. There was a smattering of them over the years, and there were several television projects that were done here. But it was, if you think about it, it was all basically the projects that they did here. It was always because there was a big, giant, major celebrity attached to the project.
Yeah.
Whereas LA, you would get a variety of all different kinds of movies, all different kinds of television shows. This was just kind of a fluke of like, oh, we're filming in Vegas. And then everyone thinks, oh, God, I got to see that. Oh, it's going to be in Vegas. It's going to be great. And my favorite movie star's starring in it, or
Yeah.
whoever your favorite television personality is, you know, it would be a big lure. But I have really high hopes now that Joe Lombardo has taken over as governor, because I know the governor is very instrumental in everything that happens in the state, and the people don't realize the governor of a state is the most powerful person in the entire state.
Yeah, yeah.
They have more power than the president in each individual state.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and you saw how south it went when we had the wrong governor.
Yeah, Sisolak just was
Oh,
horrible.
boy.
Intentionally destroyed this state the way he did it, you know.
It was really hard to sit and watch. I mean,
Yeah.
God forbid the pandemic was bad enough, and then to see what transpired
Yeah.
through our local government, and it was like everyone, I guess, was just turning a blind eye to it or hoping it was going to end soon.
Yeah, year and a half. Year and a half people were out of work, out of making a living. You know, it was like, it was ridiculous.
Unbelievable.
Should have never happened, you know.
Well, and it was, I mean, thank God I was able to get some unemployment during that. And I mean, obviously there's no way you could possibly work, but that wasn't the problem. I didn't want to go on unemployment. I wanted to go to work every day.
Yeah, me too. You know,
I worked 30 years. You know, when I finished Jubilee, I worked the next 4 years in all of the other IOST crafts. I did lighting, I did audio, I did video, I built video walls, you know, everything that was in, you know, under the convention umbrella. And, you know, you go to work every day for 30 years, then all of a sudden you can't go to work for 14 months.
yeah.
I thought I was going to have a nervous breakdown. Who thought you would crack up because you couldn't go to work?
Yeah, that 2 weeks lasted, you know, a year and a half basically. Yeah, thank you guys.
So, like I said,
Ridiculous.
moving forward, I really hope that we can get this movie thing going down here. And
I think they can. I think you know, it's not it's one of those things that, can you imagine all the people working in that industry and the money being brought into this town to make these movies, and it's a win-win-win-win
Yeah.
situation. Maybe a little inconvenience at times when they have to tie up traffic to do a shot or something like that. But you know, hey, Las Vegas, get over it. You know,
well, that's it. We're never going to have the traffic that LA has.
no.
There's no way that you
So-
could duplicate that layout of freeways and disaster that is downtown Los Angeles. And
Yeah.
the whole state of California. It's just turned into an impossibility to do anything that isn't absolute costly and pure agony. Just to get a
Yeah.
simple movie in the can is. And then, of course, everything's got to be a blockbuster, or it will only last 2 days at the theater. So the movie industry is, I don't know. I think it's moving away from LA, number one, and they're going to really have to balance out the AI with the real live actors and
Yep.
the sets and everything, because it just, well, you know, when you see too many special effects, that it almost starts to get monotonous. You know, and that's what I'm reading. Burt Reynolds, one of Burt Reynolds' books right now, and he talks about it. You know, how the transition started to go away from stunts, and then it just started to get to a point to where it just looked so hokey on film that everything was generated by AI, and the stunt people were really not. I mean, they were useless because they would just do everything with a camera trick.
Yeah.
You know, in the old days, you jump off the side of a building, you jumped off the side of the building.
Yeah. And those guys, didn't last very long in their trade because they were beat up so bad. But well, Dwayne, Shawn Wayne. I started calling you your real name.
I know.
Habit. I don't know.
I know. I've got to
call
pick. I've got 3 names, and I have to figure out which one I'm going to use where.
So you're confused too. You're confused. All right. So
Gary
Shawn-
Science. Well, it's been a great coming down here and chatting in the
Yeah.
Elvis room. This is one of the last bastions of Vegas, of real Vegas that
I
are
know,
left.
and I know, and to be able to do that is just, I am humbled that they allowed me to do this, and so grateful they've said yes to it. But thanks for coming in here. Maybe we'll think of some more things, and down the line you can say, "Hey, I just thought of a whole bunch more. How about we do it again?" Be glad to. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Because that's the whole point of this is to keep the history of Las Vegas entertainment and backstage alive.
Well, and we know it's not going to come to an end.
Not anytime soon that we can see, until some idiot, decides to pull the plug again like another Sisolak. Hopefully we never see that type of a guy again. So,
No.
well, thanks again. And join us again on another episode of the Craig L. Hayes Show. And I'm going to wrap it up with my buddy Talbot Snow doing his typical announcement. Talbot, take it away.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.